Good evening, I'm Prasad Michael and you're watching Kini News, the show that brings you today's biggest stories. The government will launch an advocacy campaign to fight vaccine misinformation as the country prepares to roll out its Covid-19 immunisation drive. Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has announced that Covid-19 vaccines will be available to Malaysians for free, with a detailed vaccine rollout plan set to be announced in January 2021. However, foreigners residing in Malaysia will be charged a fee for the vaccine. Muhyiddin's announcement came as the country signed agreements to procure sufficient COVID-19 vaccine doses to vaccinate 30% of the population. He said after the vaccines have been procured, they will be distributed in stages, prioritizing high-risk groups. Those in the high-risk groups will include frontliners, senior citizens and patients with non-commutable diseases like heart disease and diabetes. Following this, the vaccination will be expanded to other target groups. Muhyiddin also said Health Minister Dr. Adham Baba has signed a preliminary purchase agreement with US drug maker Pfizer for 12.8 million doses of the vaccine, which would be enough for 6.4 million people. This is contingent on Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine receiving approval from the US Food and Drug Administration and the Malaysian National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency. Under the deal, Pfizer is to deliver 1 million doses in the first quarter of next year. Another 1.7 million doses are to be delivered in the second quarter, 5.8 million in the third quarter and 4.3 million in the fourth quarter. Muhyiddin said Adham had also signed an agreement with the WHO-led Covax scheme to provide vaccines for another 10% of the Malaysian population. The Pfizer vaccine needs to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius, while the Moderna candidate in the Covax scheme needs to be stored at minus 20 degrees Celsius. Nevertheless, Muhyiddin expressed confidence that healthcare facilities in Malaysia can meet these challenges. The directive to opposition MPs to pass the budget was disappointing, according to several PKR MPs, and now they want a caucus to be set up to fix things.
Yesterday's directive by leaders of the opposition to pass the budget came as a disappointment to many. This is according to Johor Bahru MP Akmal Nasir, Pasir Gudang MP Hassan Karim, and Permatang Pau MP Nurul Izzah Anwar. In a statement today, the three lawmakers said that their supporters had made it clear that it is crucial to be dictated by their conscience in matters of national importance, and they wanted to honor the trust in them and act accordingly. They said they were ready to vote down the budget until the last-minute instructions to stand down came, which they followed as per the conventions of party discipline. The three then proposed the setting up of an economic, social and welfare caucus to rectify matters and acknowledge their shortfalls. Having spent the night reflecting on the budget vote, they said that they had decided to come together to champion clear-cut policy alternatives by diligently performing their role as opposition lawmakers. They said the current budget does not serve the needs of the rakyat, overpromises on revenue, and undercuts vital services. They also zoomed in on the government's decision to let workers dig into their employees' provident fund saving, and said that the government is forcing people to borrow from their future instead of providing the necessary support. They added that as MPs, they must represent their constituents in the Dewan Rakyat, and as members of the opposition in a parliamentary democracy, they also have to be responsible in providing sufficient checks and balances against the excesses of the government, and must not forget the issues of social justice and anti-corruption that PKR stands for, which many PKR supporters have dedicated themselves to. They added that they will continue to champion those principles as opposition lawmakers and to manifest their service and loyalty to king and country.
The Election Commission has announced the dates for the Gerik Parliament and Bugaya State by-elections today.
A double by-election will be held on January 16th next year for the N66 Bugaya State seat in Sabah and the P54 Gerik parliamentary seat in Perak. The Election Commission Chairperson Abdul Ghani Saleh announced that nominations will be held on January 4th, followed by 12 days of campaigning. Early voting will take place on January 12th. According to Abdul Ghani, stricter standard operating procedures will be enforced to prevent the emergence of new COVID-19 clusters as a result of the by-elections. Campaign activities in the form of trauma, house-to-house visits, walkabouts, or distribution of campaign pamphlets in person are not allowed. Candidates are encouraged to campaign on social media, and party workers are allowed to put up banners in the by-election areas. He added that candidates are only permitted to open one central election command center instead of several smaller rooms or gathering sites. The by-elections were called to fill vacancies due to the recent passing of its incumbents, UMNO's former Gerik MP Hasbullah Osman and Warisan's former Bugaya Assemblyperson Manis Muka Muhammad Dara. On November 16th, Hasbullah died of a heart attack in Raub, Pahang. A day later, Manis Muka passed away at Gleneagles Hospital in Kota Kinabalu, where she had been admitted for kidney problems.
Opposition MPs have betrayed the people's trust after failing to initiate a block vote on Thursday, according to one of the few MPs who stood up, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad.
After failing to initiate the divisional voting at the Dewan Rakyat yesterday due to insufficient support from opposition MPs, Langkawi MP Dr. Mahathir Mohamad lamented that the opposition has failed in its obligation to the people. In a blog post yesterday, after voting on the second reading of the Budget 2021 proposal, Mahathir said that when this happens, it means the government elected by the people can be toppled in the middle of its term and replaced by a backdoor government, and elections have become meaningless. He said, a government that is propped up by bribes and gratification to MPs is being supported by the opposition MPs without a shred of remorse from breaking its promise to the people, and added that this was what had happened in Parliament yesterday. Mahathir said, Pejuang's MPs have stood firm against the proposed budget because that is their obligation to the people as elected representatives. He said they were steadfast in opposing any form of corruption and hoped the people will also realize this and reject corruption too. Meanwhile, opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim has vowed that the opposition will be calling for divisional or block votes during committee stage debates when MPs will be debating each ministry's budget one by one.
Malaysia reported more recoveries than new cases today. Let's take a look at the country's latest COVID-19 situation. Malaysia reported 1,109 new COVID-19 cases today and 2 deaths. New cases were reported in every state except for Perlis, Terengganu, Melaka and Sarawak. Sabah continues to report the highest number of new cases with 441, followed by Selangor with 175 and Negeri Sembilan with 167. Kuala Lumpur and Negeri Sembilan saw the emergence of large new clusters in a construction site and a factory respectively. With 1,148 recoveries reported today, more than the number of new cases, active cases have dropped by 41 to 11,348. Patients in intensive care, however, rose by 3 to 113. Many DAP supporters and members were furious yesterday, and one party leader is ready to take full responsibility. DAP members and supporters expressed unhappiness after party lawmakers refused to support an attempt to initiate block voting on Budget 2021 yesterday. As a result, the budget passed the policy stage in the Dewan Rakyat with a voice vote. In a statement released on Thursday night, DAP parliamentary leader Anthony Loke apologised openly to disappointed party members and supporters. Loke said as DAP's parliamentary leader, he takes full responsibility over his decision of not instructing DAP MPs to request for a block vote after receiving a message from opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. Anwar had appealed to Amanah President Muhammad Sabu and DAP Secretary General Lim Guan Eng not to proceed with a block vote on the budget at the policy stage. Explaining his action after a meeting with Pakatan Harapan MPs, Anwar said the coalition remains opposed to Perikatan Nasional's budget. However, he did not want to be seen as rejecting new initiatives announced by Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz. In his statement last night, Loke also pledged that all DAP lawmakers will ensure starting next Monday that the fight will go on. Yesterday, several second-tier DAP leaders, including Ayakero Assemblyperson Kek Chi Yi and Subang Jaya Assemblyperson Michelle Ng, demanded answers from the party's central leadership. Meanwhile, Diana Sofia, the former political secretary to DAP veteran Lim Kit Siang, said the opposition MPs should have at least tried. From various video feeds and checks with MPs, it was clear that most DAP and PKR MPs did not support Pokok Sena MP Mahfuz Omar's request, despite MPs from both sides vigorously participating in the debate before the vote was called. The 30 MPs who supported block voting were Langkawi MP Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, Jerlon MP Mukris Mahathir, Kubang Pasu MP Shahrudin Saleh, Shah Alam MP Khalid Samad, Pokok Sena MP Mahfuz Omar, Lumut MP Dr. Hatta Ramli, Hulu Langat MP Hasanuddin Muhammad Yunus, Kuala Selangor MP Zulkifli Ahmad, Sepang MP Anifah Maidin, Mas Gading MP Mordi Bimol and Pasir Gudang MP Hassan Karim. Coming up next, an age-old practice is being used in some Cambodian villages to ward off the coronavirus. In Cambodia, some villagers have put their trust in scarecrows to fend off evil spirits and diseases.
Cambodian villager Ek Chan has avoided the coronavirus so far without masks or social distancing, but rather the scarecrows she has made to keep the deadly virus at bay. The scarecrows are known locally as Ting Mong.
Since I've made these scarecrows, they have helped to scare away all viruses, including the coronavirus, from spreading to my family. I myself really believe in the magic of scarecrows and don't worry about catching the virus at all.
Her 2 scarecrows guard the gate of her house in Kandal province near the capital Phnom Penh, giving her peace of mind. The practice has existed for more than a century in some Cambodian villages. The scarecrows are easy to make, typically comprised of rice hay, bamboo, or wooden sticks, and dressed in old clothes. Chan added a motorcycle helmet for extra protection. Some owners also armed them with sticks and knives. Cambodia is among the countries least affected by the coronavirus, with just 307 cases and no deaths reported, having obtained minor outbreaks in March, July, and August. But many Cambodians are still wary of getting infected, with fears heightened earlier this month when Hungary's foreign minister visited the country and later tested positive. Ek Chan says she knows little of the signs of Covid-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus, and though she believes in the power of her scarecrows, she hopes a free vaccine will be available soon.
Americans celebrated a scaled-back Thanksgiving as Covid-19 cases surged.
Americans on Thursday celebrated a Thanksgiving Day transformed by the coronavirus pandemic, with the normally packed Macy's Day Parade in New York City limited to a socially distant TV-only spectacle, and many families meeting on video for turkey dinner. The Thanksgiving holidays has been disrupted by the coronavirus, with cases and deaths surging in recent weeks as cooler weather pushes people indoors where the virus spreads more easily. U.S. hospitalizations of COVID-19 patients reached a record of more than 89,000 on Wednesday, and experts warn that Thanksgiving could significantly boost the death toll that has already exceeded 262,000 nationwide. Doing its part to control the surge, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, normally an event with giant character balloons that has delighted many for nearly a century, was reduced to 1 block, rather than the usual 2.5 miles. Spectators were prohibited from lining the streets as before, though some could be seen gathering at barricades trying to catch a glimpse. Despite advice from the CDC to stay home, an estimated 6 million Americans traveled by air from last Friday to Wednesday, although that is less than half the number of travelers during the same period last year. The holiday is being celebrated at a time of severe economic strain for millions of Americans. More than 20 million people are receiving some form of unemployment benefits, and a fresh wave of layoffs is expected as governors impose business restrictions in a bid to control spiraling infections. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden, in his Thanksgiving Day message, asked Americans not to gather in large groups, and instead give essential workers thanks for their service. President Donald Trump spent the holiday playing a round of golf at his resort in Virginia. Trump later hosted a video teleconference with members of the military, wishing them a happy holiday.
And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'll be back with more next week, same time, same place. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching.